So how did you rate Jeremy Hunt's financial statement and what did it do for you? It's one of those stories we'll all remember where we were when Mr Hunt gave his autumn statement. Or maybe not. I think Disney and Netflix can sleep soundly. This was not exactly box office stuff.
Today's measures do not just remove barriers to investment, they reward effort and work. And I'll go through the measures in three parts. In the first, I'll use updated OBR forecasts to show the progress we're making against the Prime Minister's economic priorities. The second part sets out growth measures to back British business. Finally, I conclude with measures to make work pay.
Don't panic, it got more exciting.
Underlying debt will be 91.6% of GDP next year, 92.7% in 24-5, 93.2% in 26-7, before declining in the final 2 years of the forecast to 92.8% in 28-29.
OK, not that exciting, but what we really wanted to hear was whether this government are looking after hard-working Brits.
Today, we honour our commitment to the triple lock in full. From April 24, we will increase the full new state pension by 8.5% to £221.20 a week.
OK, it's a fair point. We all need to look after pensioners. It's a morally fine point too. But I'm not sure Bob in Arbroath, who's working his socks off to feed his family and survive the cost of living crisis, will see it as his #1 priority. Maybe this was the tonic.
We are delivering the biggest business tax cut in modern British history, the largest ever cut to employee and self-employed national insurance, and the biggest package of tax cuts to be implemented since the 1980s. An autumn statement for a country that has turned a corner, an autumn statement for growth, which I commend to the House.
There it was. That was the best moment. A tax cut, a real living, breathing Conservative tax cut. Who'd have thought it after 13 years and the highest tax burden for 7 decades, we would finally be given tax cuts, trebles all round. But was it enough? Remember, this was a financial statement designed to encourage you to vote Conservative at the next election. Did it work? Have they won you over? The problem, as we identified yesterday on this programme, is that there's no big idea here, no real sense of what conservatism really looks like. What do the Tories philosophically stand for? We're still not really any the wiser. So, how did you rate Jeremy Hunt's financial statement? What has it done for you? 0344 499 1000. We'll open the lines on that now. Joining me in the studio, Holly Mead, Deputy Money Editor at The Times and The Sunday Times. Afternoon to you, Holly. It is that point, isn't it? You know, people used to understand, you know, Labour stood for this, they gave away a bit more of other people's money, and the Tories tried to allow people to keep their own money. We kind of knew where parties stood. I'm watching this today, Jeremy Hunt, and just after I finished gnawing my own elbows after about 10 minutes in, I started to think, what do they stand for? What is conservatism in this respect?
Well, I think, like you say, today was just kind of underwhelming, wasn't it? And maybe that wasn't helped by the fact for the last couple of weeks we've had all these teasers of, inheritance tax is going to be scrapped and stamp duty cuts for everyone and here's some money back, and actually none of that materialised today. It felt like a bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, and inheritance tax, of course, never made an appearance. I mean, that went by the wayside early doors, it seems.
I've just been upstairs and read the 112-page budget document. The word inheritance is not in there.
Is it not there once?
No,
I bet it was probably there 24 hours ago, and then they suddenly thought, this isn't going to play well, perhaps. It's about obviously the pensioners thing. Who doesn't want to look after, you know, people in their older years, etc. That's a given. But hard-working women and men of this country, you know, what does it do for them? That's fundamentally, to coin that phrase, the pound in your pocket. What does it look like for those people?
Absolutely. So there were 2 measures today that will affect average Joe or Joanna. One of those is that national insurance is going to be cut by 2 percentage points. So currently we pay 12% of our wages. That's going to fall to 10%, and that's going to take effect from January the 6th, which is, you know, pretty fast moving for a government measure. And that's going to put...
normally like 4 years away, isn't it, when they make these
announcements? Usually we talk about it a bit, we have a cup of tea.
Exactly.
It's going to put £450 a year extra into the average worker's pocket. That's if you earn the median wage of £35,000. A little bit more, about £620 for the average police officer. So that's a good measure. And the national living wage, this kind of got trailed yesterday, but national living wage is going up in April to £11.44. from its current level of 10.42, which is almost double what it was when this Conservative government came to power. So that's a pay rise of about £1,800 a year if you're a full-time worker on the minimum wage. Again, great, but does it outweigh a cost of living crisis? I don't know.
And that's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, it's the balance there. And I appreciate, look, any government, you know, if Starmer was elected in next year, he will have these same hurdles and battles and perceptions and realities, etc. But of course, they're not in power. The Tories are in power, and they want to remain in power. And of course, the big part of this, I mean, there will be another, you know, a bigger budget to come before an election. That'll be what, next May or something like that?
Usually March time.
March time. So there's more on the way, maybe more rabbits out of the hat, as it were. But these things are designed to catch people's eyes. So people go, well, actually, I wasn't going to vote for them, but I will now. I wonder whether this statement did any of that. And there's the answer, right?
Yeah.
Possibly not.
To me, everything Mr Hunt said today was brought back to inflation and not wanting to stoke inflation. This was a cautious budget for someone that doesn't want to upset the markets, which is very valid. So everything was brought back to, well, you know, if we put too much more money back in your pockets, that will drive inflation up again. And if we cut this and cut that, we're only going to stoke inflation and make it worse. So I understand that has to be balanced out. They also want to be seen as being fiscally responsible and bringing that deficit down. There was a lot of talk about the national debt coming down and being, you know, reined in more than had been previously predicted, and economic growth. So I think it's balancing all those things, but the upshot of that is no rabbits for you or me today. Yeah,
no rabbits at all. And in fact, arguably the most devastating news here was the growth forecast, because that has probably been hit. And I know that it's a forecast, and the OBR has been wrong in the past many times. But, I mean, it's pretty devastating. It was predicted 1.8% down to, what, 0.7%.
It's quite sad when the marker that he's using is we grew more than Austria. I think that was one of the ones he used as an example. I mean, we're in positive territory. A few months ago, a recession was widely predicted to be on the cards. It would obviously be a great thing if we can stay out of that recession, even if it's only on a sort of technical basis. I think I bring a recession back to more what I see and feel when I walk down my local high road and other pubs and restaurants buzzing, and I'm not really seeing that they are at the moment. We're in that, I'm going to say the C word, we're coming up to Christmas now. It should be Christmas parties and gatherings and shopping, and I don't know what you're seeing, but I think people are struggling.
I think there's no doubt about that, and we go through sort of certain periods of false sense of security, maybe, you know, maybe it's all going to be okay, and then, you know, we see figures like this. I mean, these, you know, this is the government themselves speaking. They're not hiding the fact that the growth forecast is much slower, more than half of what it was predicted to be. Now, it could change. You know, you mentioned other countries. I mean, we kept hearing about Germany a while back. You know, Germany, they're doing worse than we are, as if it was a race to the bottom. But this is still not good. It does mean that the next year could be even more turbulent with the government.
They're talking about productivity, getting more people back to work. There was a lot of stuff there about, you know, cutting benefits of people that they perceive to not be making enough efforts to get back into work. So I think getting productivity up and employment, you know, more fully engaged is clearly a priority, and hopefully they're trying to drive economic growth in that way.
Labour, of course, will say, I mean, we'll be speaking to Labour later in the programme. I can almost predict their answer. It's rubbish, you can't trust them with the economy, and the world has lost its mind. That will be their answer. Have they got a big idea, just out of interest?
I mean, I don't know what their big idea is. If they've communicated one, it might have gone over my head.
I don't think that, you see, I don't think they have. I mean, that's the joy of being in opposition, I suppose, isn't it? You can sit there from the sidelines and swipe away as much as you like. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be in charge, but they might be in charge fairly soon, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the prediction is that there will be an election by the end of next year. They have until January 2025 to call one, but I mean, no one wants to do that just after Christmas, do they? Don't want to be knocking on doors. I mean, maybe carolling would be a great new campaigning technique. Who knows?
Carol singing, yes. Carol singing your election slogan.
Yeah, I think it could work.
26th of December, there's an MP at your front door.
So it's like Rudolph the income tax reindeer.
There you go, all of that. It writes itself, this, doesn't it? Listen, Holly, good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Holly Mead from the Times and the Sunday Times with us here on Talk TV.